Now let's talk about some features in Blacklight. So these are going to be unique features or new features. This little section of this course is constantly changing because as different updates come out and different significant additions to the tool come out or capabilities, they'll be added to this section. So let's go over some of those unique features that have recently come to light. Burla integration. So anybody hasn't heard of Burla? Burla is a company that's utilizing the Ivy. So they've created a solution for being able to extract data from vehicles. Their infotainment systems contain data which can be very valuable for your investigations. This vehicle forensics is a mixture of hardware, software, and training to do it properly. Those infotainment systems can contain a wealth of information, and it has to be stored somewhere, right? So think about this as a user. I'm a user. I have a Ford. I'm utilizing my iPhone in my Ford, and I, of course, want to utilize Bluetooth and be hands-free in my vehicle. So when I get into my car, I pair my iPhone to that vehicle. Information is exchanging at that point in that vehicle system and that iPhone. Depending on the system and how the system is built and what it is actually taking from the iPhone and what the iPhone is allowing it to take will be dependent on the information you may be able to recover from some memory inside that vehicle. So somewhere inside that vehicle, there may be a module which contains storage, kind of like a hard drive. So you think about it as a hard drive. If you can get to that module and you can properly connect to it and extract data off of it, you now have information that can be very useful for your investigation. Doing all this process, you get that information and you run it through the Ivy software. You can then create an IVX database. So you can export that IVX database. Blacklight now has the ability to import that database directly, and it parses out and goes through that data. So now it's integrated into Blacklight. This brings up a very interesting point. So what if you had the vehicle, but you didn't have the iPhone? But you had a suspect, and you knew that they were in that vehicle at some point in time. Could this help you put them in that vehicle? You also have a situation where you have another data source. So you may have an iPhone, but can't get into the iPhone. And now you have a vehicle, and you also went and served the search warrant and got information from their residents and acquired a laptop and a desktop. You can bring all of those data sources into Blacklight and now go through the data in one instance or in one case file. And you can collaborate between them so you can find information that's contained on all of those things and how they're relative to each other. This is a very basic import from a Ford. This system specifically was a Sync Gen 3 system. Notice you'll see things like the vehicle VIN, the year, manufacturer, okay? And then it'll parse out that data within Blacklight, just like you were seeing those other evidence items in your component list. Now that IVX file here, if you go and look at the database, you can go through the different tables. And some of these tables, as you see here, can be very relevant to your case. So you have event logs, you have device logs, you have SMS, you have tracks, you have track points, you have routes, you have phone numbers. All of these things can be contained in that extraction from that vehicle. The next integration is from Symantec 21. Symantec 21 processes multimedia. So it's a unique piece of software that will process multimedia in a way that helps those end users, those examiners that are doing the very heavy volume multimedia cases. So if you've got a couple million graphics to go through and a couple million videos to go through, you're going to want to look into getting Symantec 21 and start processing those items with it. What you can do with Blacklight is you can export it into the Symantec 21 Suite I format. So if you've brought in multiple hard drives and an iPhone and another iPhone into one case, you can then select all that media and export it into that Suite I format. You go to Symantec 21 and you point it at that file that you created, and it'll bring all that data in for you. Symantec 21 prides themselves on being very, very efficient. So the amount of media that they can process and the analytics that goes into that processing happens very quickly for what occurs. They have a lot of unique review features. Some of those things are looking for like backgrounds or like faces. So you can start drawing conclusions in your multimedia that you couldn't really draw before unless you actually reviewed them and took the time to say, this background here looks like the picture I saw 3,000 pictures ago. And this clothing here looks very similar to the clothing that that other person was wearing. We have added a plugin manager into Blacklight. So you'll see this on the far right-hand side of your command bar. Currently, the only plugin that we have is for Apollo. So the Apollo acronym is Apple Pattern of Life Lazy Outputter. This was created and is continually developed by Sarah Edwards, who now works for Blackbag. She is continually updating this and making it better and better with every module and every update to the modules. These databases that it'll pull this information from will actually run against iOS and Mac OS evidence. So when you bring that evidence into your case, you have the possibility of this information being there and that Apollo plugin running across it and giving you results. Knowledge C is one of the most popular or most heard about sources for this type of data. But there's also a lot of other categories under here that can be extremely useful for your case. Here's a couple examples. Right here we're highlighting the knowledge data and we open it up and you can see some entries here for app usage, device lock, device plugged in, Siri. So you can quickly see how this can help you in your investigations, and going through that data can help you bring out more valuable information from that evidence. Here's some more information as we drill down through app usage. You will quickly see different apps that you are familiar with and the actual way they're being used from that device. So for example, here we're looking at terminal, right? So we're looking at that command line on a Mac OS and the usage in seconds. So we have 243 seconds of this instance that terminal was being used and the day of the week and the GMT offset at that time. Taking this information and other collective information from your case, you can put some pretty damning conclusions together. For a long time, Blacklight has not been able to unlock items within the case or within Blacklight. They have a password integration now that focuses on locks and protection and encryption. So you can add items that may be full disk encryption or full volume encryption to your Blacklight case, for example, like BitLocker, FileVault 2, and Lux. And if you know the correct credentials or have the recovery key at the time of ingestion, it will actually have the ability to decrypt and properly decode the information in those volumes or in those disk images. And this is only the first integration of the passware capabilities. There is future integration that will continue to bring more capabilities in reference to locking and unlocking and determining different ways to attack those different files to get that data out for you. This may look something like this when you're bringing in a BitLocker EO1. So if you have a Windows computer, you took an EO1 image of it, and it was BitLocker encrypted. As it looks through that EO1 and it reviews those partition tables, it then sees what you have is an NTFS encrypted volume, and it gives you a size for that. It also notices that it's encrypted with BitLocker, so it shows you an icon of a lock symbol. You'd simply select that lock symbol, and then you would have the capability of putting in the password or the recovery key at this point. You do a simple confirm on that password, it would go test it, and if all is well, after that, you'll be able to ingest it fully and conduct a process just like you normally would from an EO1 that wasn't encrypted.